coaches. Then after you have great coaches, you get great players. You have a great organization, and you tell them one thing: just win, David.
Just win, baby. Welcome to the Week 13 edition of the podcast. That was a little Al Davis throwback, just win, baby. And that's what the commish has been doing. Not in fantasy, we'll get to that, but on the pod, I take my lumps when I'm bad. I gotta take my wins when I can. 8-0 in the last 8 picks I've given out on this pod, including 5 straight Thursday night winners. Last week, I had San Fran on Thursday night, on Thanksgiving night, -7. They slaughtered the Seahawks. And I had Pitt -1.5. The Bengals were a sexy pick, rallying around the backup quarterback. No. Pittsburgh took care of business. 2-0 on the week. After a 4-12 start, I am 12-12. I have climbed the mountain. And I asked some folks around the league, around our league, how many wins do I have to have in a row to go viral? Valone said I need a full season of Thursday night picks. I think that's a little high. If I go 10 in a row, 12 in a row, man, I got to start tagging some big fish, tell them I got some winners for them. Because the commission is just hot right now in his NFL picks. And we'll get to some of my picks here in a little bit. My fantasy picks, I'm 4-1 the last 2 weeks, each respectively. And the only matchup I've gotten wrong in each one of those weeks is myself. Picked myself to beat Otley 2 weeks ago, loss. I picked myself to beat Brett last week, loss. I had Dean over Jake, that happened. I had PP over Chris, that was an upset special. I called it on the pod, it happened. I had Terry over Valone, that was easy. Terry was the high score of the week for the second time of the season. And then I had Otley over Kevin, another pretty much easy one there. 45-15 on the season. Woo! I feel like Al Davis right now. But the show must go on. The season's not over. You can't take a victory lap in Week 12. I got to keep giving out winners on this pod. So, let's talk about the standings. I lost a critical matchup last week against Brett. Brett, I've been tooting his horn. That sounded wrong, but I have been tooting it ever since he was, 1-4, 1-5. He's now 6-6, a huge win over me last week. He has passed Chris in the standings, and he plays Kevin, Pearson, and then Chris the last game of the season. He has a Rainbow Road, Yellow Brick Road, paved final couple games here, against a critical opponent in Chris and the 10th and 9th place teams, where he can establish himself as a potential crazy comeback season and usurp either myself, who's on a 2-game losing streak, Jake, who's on a little bit of a skid, only a 1-game losing streak, but he's ping pong, win-loss. So Brett is the big mover here in the standings. Another big mover, Terry. We were saying he was kind of losing steam. He's won 3 in a row. He's pretty much a lock for the playoffs. Most points in the league, 9-3. I've fallen to third. My dad, couple big wins. He's in second. Another team to mention, Otley kind of crawling out of the basement 2 in a row after he lost 6 in a row. Pearson back in the win column as predicted. And Kev, even after Hurts had 5 touchdowns, Devonta Smith went over 100 yards in his matchup in that overtime game. Still not enough, and he's 2-10. One of the worst seasons I can remember for Kevin. And he's really, really, really close to locking up last place. It's not defined yet, but it's getting pretty darn close with 3 weeks left. So, not to harp on what I just said about just win, but I've kind of said that to Brett and Chris the past couple weeks. Don't really look at the standings. Just keep trying to get off wins. And Chris, a very tough matchup or tough loss last week to Pearson, but same thing that I said about Brett having a path here. If Chris gets a couple wins and then plays his arch nemesis Brett there at the end of the season, it could very well be a battle for who's going to make it into the playoffs. So let's jump in. I mean, free agent pickups, there haven't been a lot of news on the wire. Valone spent $17 on Jaden Reed. Needs a flex play. Credit to the champion for continuing the fight. He's been great. So he was able to snipe him. I spent the rest of my money on Pat Freiermuth after his big performance, hoping that he can solidify himself as a tight end in that offense with Mark Andrews on my team down. So we'll see. But heading into the matchup, let me first give you my Thursday night pick. It's the order that's been working before I dive in. Thursday Night King. This is going for 6 in a row. And this is a little bit of a different pick, but I have earned the privilege at this point to give this pick out. And let me just talk it through, because you guys know one of my credos is in the NFL, you bet the team that looked worst the last week because there's so much parity in the NFL. And one of the teams that looked very bad last week was Seattle. However, on the other side, I've been on this pod saying that the Cowboys at home are averaging over 40 points, keep taking their team totals. They slaughtered Washington on Thanksgiving. So, you're riding a really hot team. They're minus 9.5 at home. It's crazy what that spread is. So on one hand, Seattle looked really bad. Can they bounce back? Dallas scorching hot. They really beat up on bad teams. I think Dallas wins this game. I think that Seattle could cover. I don't think they will cover. I think they could cover. So I'm giving out a pick here. Dallas minus 2.5, parlayed with the over 42.5. So it's a little bit of a tease down of the spread and the over. Put them together, it's minus 120. I just did it an hour ago. That minus 120 is a fair line to give out on this pot as a pick. Anywhere from minus 120 to plus 120, I think, is my line. So Cowboys, minus 2.5. They win by a field goal. And over, I think it's 47.5. I took it down to 42.5. So Cowboys win 35-10. You still cover the number. Cowboys win 27-24. You still cover the number. So that's my pick. And that's my Thursday Night King. Give me a crown pick going into Week 13. To try to hit 6 in a row and 9 in a row overall. Other pick will come later. Big matchups this week, guys. It's getting down to nitty-gritty. Week 13, remember we play an extra week than most leagues. We go all the way through Week 15 in the regular season, so some of those teams fighting to get in, that's good news for you. Let's start with, I always go order. First matchup, coincidentally, we talked about Brett has a nice matchup here against Kevin this week, and then Pearson next week. He's a 29.8 point favorite against Kevin. I mentioned that, Kevin's usual chance is Hurts and Smith going off, and they did last week, and he still didn't get it done. Brett just hitting the zone here with Stroud, a huge pickup, Tank Dell, a huge pickup, Kyron. He had 1,000,000 points against me last week, and part of the reason why Brett was able to edge me, he's back and looks like a top 6 running back. Najee in a cake matchup against Arizona. I'm going to say, I could say more. Brett's going to win this matchup. Kittle, very solid option there. If Kupp can get a little bit healthier, if Stroud can keep rolling, Brett's primed for a run. We'll see what happens. I'm definitely taking him in this matchup over Kevin to make things interesting in the standings. Next pick, it's Pearson and Ott, and this matchup really doesn't matter too much in terms of the playoff push. I say that Otley is 5-7. He's not mathematically eliminated. I think Pearson at 4-8 is. Both these teams playing for pride, both coming off wins. Call it like I see it. Otley said, just as I'm making my push, still no Jefferson and now Jonathan Taylor, thumb surgery. Pearson all of a sudden on the other side has more options than he's had all season. Rachaad White, Jalen Warren, Derrick Henry. His team's so good, he's got Charbonnet on the bench and Cook on bye. He's got options, right? Hal's been very, very good. 7th quarterback on the year. Wide receiver options, still not great. Christian Watson been banged up. If Otley's going to win this matchup, he needs Bijan to have a big match, big week, but he's matched up against the Jets. I don't love that. Lockett tonight. Hollywood's been a disappointment. 2 tight ends in this lineup this week. I got Pearson over Otley. Pearson's hitting his stride here. He's definitely had, he's been the unlucky benefactor. I don't know if that's the way to say it, but he's been unlucky with points against and just his opponents this season. His team is not as bad as his record. I'm taking him to beat Otley and end Otley's winning streak and probably a season. Sorry, Ott. Ott hasn't even been able to say when I pick him to win, he loses, and I pick him to lose, he wins. I've just been so freaking money. All right, anyway. Moving on to the three probably most important matchups of the week. We got Dean and Valone. Valone fighting for his life, similar to Otley. Some disappointing players that have been a little bit better. Pollard kind of turned the quarter a little bit. Ayuk has been solid after he's come back from his buys, and Purdy getting some weapons back on the Niners. But, Dean, just the firepower is there. Eckler against the Patriots, that should be a get-right game. Michael Pittman Jr. has been phenomenal. Dean made that trade for Nico Collins against Jake last week at 100 and a touchdown. He's pulling the right strings. He's got a better team than Valone. Valone's relying on guys, like I said, Jaden Reed, Jamar Chase without a quarterback. I think Dean gets it done, and I think this win this week will solidify his playoff berth. And I think he gets it done against the King and probably puts the King out of his misery at this point. I said King. I'm the King. The champion Valone. I think he puts him out of his misery. So, all right, huge matchup here. Ty Freaky Hill versus CTE or Die Trying. Chris needs a win. How does he do it, right? First, let me say, Jake, in a week where no Devontae Adams, no Lamar Jackson, no Alexander Madison, no Cole Kmet, gets a gift wrap. Zach Moss, great pickup. Not trying to take that away from him. Great pickup a couple weeks ago or whenever he picked him up last week. But to have that news drop on Taylor, to be able to throw Moss in at flex, he's going to be a top 15 running back option. It's huge, right? Mostert and Hill against Washington. Great. Chris has Tua. Obviously still would want to have Jake's side of that. But, Russell Wilson in a spot where he should do well, but still, not Lamar Jackson there for Jake. So Jake's team, I guess what I'm saying is, despite the buys, still strong. Chris's team, how does he win? He needs Kelsey to do, more, I would say. Last week, 6 for 91, good, but no touchdown, didn't break the 100-yard barrier. He needs Brees to do something against Atlanta. In 4 out of his last 5 games, he's been held for under 30 yards rushing. Crazy. They just stacked the box against this poor team. Pacheco's been good. Waddle in that same matchup. Here's how he wins. Waddle. If Waddle can somehow, Tyreek's got to be a lock for 100 and a touch, right? Against Washington. But if Waddle can somehow have, one of those 75-yard catches where he takes a 10-yard screen pass and houses it. He really hasn't done that much this season. But if he can do that, I think that's a big chance for him. He's got bye-week issues for himself here. Josh Jacobs, Gabe Davis, Gus Edwards on bye, having him to stick with Pickens, and Jonathan Mingo currently in his lineup. Chris, no kicker at the moment. He's got Koo on his bench. I guess he'll figure that out. But I'm taking Jake. I think that Chris can win this matchup. My gut says that Zach Moss news and plug there in the flex is really going to matter this week. And I think Jake's just got a stronger team with more reliable options. And I'm not betting against Tyreek Hill, Keenan Allen against New England, Mike Evans against Carolina. I'm taking Ty Freaky Hill. And it's going to be tough after that for Chris to make it in. And I hope, for Chris's sake, I'm wrong. But I got to call it how I see it. I got Jake over Chris. No question, the matchup of the week, me versus Terry. In week 3, this was that game where Terry scored 50 points on Thursday Night Football with David Montgomery. And I think Amon-Ra, he probably had 2. I know he has him. And then I came back with some huge performances. I think a 3-touchdown performance from Diggs, a 2-touchdown performance from A.J. Brown. But look, my team has been carried by Dak Prescott. A.J. Brown and Diggs, last couple games, they've been scoring, but I think last game, in that crazy game against Buffalo, Brown had like 35 yards. He did score. Puka, kind of fallen off a little bit. Tough matchup against Cleveland. No Diggs, no DJ Moore. I mean, and Mark Andrews on IR. So I've been struggling, and I've been struggling because I haven't been getting points from my running backs. Javonte and Kamara don't score. They're kind of high floor guys, but they don't score. I need those guys to help me. I need Freiermuth to kind of be that guy too to help re-solidify the tight end position. So I need Metcalf, and Dak to have good nights tonight to kind of boost me up. This is not a good matchup for me against Terry. Now, Terry does have Allen on bye. You say that's good, but again, I just mentioned I have Diggs on bye, so that's a wash, right? Baker against Carolina goes in the lineup for Terry. Still got Christian McCaffrey, David Montgomery, and then some fringe players that have been good. Rashee Rice, 100 and a touch last week. Josh Downs getting peppered with targets. He's in Terry's lineup. So, on paper, I'm not going to lie to you. This is a Terry pick. I don't pick myself to lose. There's been historic moments against Terry and me in the past. I mean, he's who I won my championship against, and I was projected to lose pretty badly in that one. And I mentioned this game earlier this season on a Thursday Night Football where he had me and I came back. Terry's strong. He's probably got the best team in the league as of this minute. I'm going to take him down this week. I'm going to do my best. I need a win to lock myself up here in the playoffs. I am not safe. I don't want to go on a losing streak here at the end of the season. I think I have the bullets to get it done. I'm not at full strength this week. I think Dak continues to give me points. I get enough to edge Terry. Terry, good luck. A win from you might not only lock up a playoff spot, probably not lock up the top spot yet, but pretty darn close with having as many points as you have and the record that you have. All right, my other pick. Denver's been good to me. I'll just go out and say it. They're an ugly team. People don't like to bet Denver because they kind of have a negative connotation from the beginning of the season. They're in Houston, and they're getting 3.5 points. Houston's good, but I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. I think Denver can hang with them, and I'm betting on the Broncos to cover the spread. Maybe they lose by a field goal to Houston. Maybe they win outright. That's my pick. Guys, this is crunch time. It's a little bit of a later pod tonight. I didn't mention that. Stuff going on, life, I am going to have a special guest probably right when the playoffs start. Hopefully have one of the playoff competitors on the pod. And listen, in all seriousness, I joke about me being hot. I'm going to keep trying to churn out winners. When I win, you win. I do. I'm known to go on streaks. This streak could cool off at any moment. I think I said that 3 pods ago. Keep riding it while it's hot. All right, boys. Good luck. Peace out.